Greetings, Webby Buddies! Today we are looking at the website of the game Candlestick again, and to do that we're going to use templates to create a very simple web page, which will allow exactly one user to play the game of Candlestick at a time. We'll fix it so that it makes more players work later. We'll have to use cookies to make sure that each person accesses the right game, but we're not going to do that just yet. And last week I asked you to play with HTML to see if you could make a quick card chooser thing using the things I'd already shown you. So let's have a go at getting out those choices, shall we? Well, the first thing we're going to need to do, this shouldn't really happen in the handle for now, but I'm just going to put it lazily in here, is we're going to need to make our cards. When we do play a game, we quickly make a new deck. So we need to have a number of players here. So players equals make new an array of players with the right number of players. This is basically what I want. I'm just going to lazily copy and paste it in for now because I'm going to be deleting it in a second. So that I can give you a quick example of how we can get the choices out. So players equals make. So we've got a bunch of players. F print f. So this is printing it to our writer interface, whatever comes in as the response writer interface even. And we'll call it header 1. We won't even bother with the header 1, just put it in paragraph, I think. So this is HTML for a paragraph of text. Doesn't need any more than that. And we can just quickly put in here, please choose a card, and then for k, v colon equal range over players, and it's this player 0 is our player dot hand, I think we called it. Did I make it uppercase? Hand dot, and we're ranging over that, and our funct will go inside here. Funct.fprintf, and instead of go hello, the text will be %d, which is the card number, and the link will also be the card number. Oh, it was go, but now we're just going to make this %d here, so when they click on the card it will be that card that is what they sent to. We're not even going to handle it right now, we just want to make sure it clicks properly. In theory, let me just check that hand is the right thing. So we're looping over the hand and printing out the cards that this player has. When we get a refresh, it will change the cards because it's creating a new game every single time someone comes. We're not going to worry about that. It's not correct for making the game work, but we should get, if I go back here, retry the URL. Oh no, we haven't actually we haven't started it, so here we go. Go run candlestick.go. Wait, did I put a started notice? Ooh, there's a problem. Candlestick 241 undefined. Oh, of course. How silly of me. That's why copying and pasting is a bad idea. Honestly, we only need one player at this stage. I'm just going to replace this with 1, which is, you know, why bother with the loop, but I'll leave it for now because we'll probably do something with it later. K and V. Oh! %d. Here's another mistake. The plan was, of course, to have a v, v, and BR is the way to make a new line in HTML. Get rid of everything up to there, and get rid of that, and apparently K is something we're not using, so that clears that one out. And go run candlestick, server starting. Brilliant. So now if I hit Control R, here we go. So we've got a choice of 1, 6 or 10. Perfect. And if I click on 10, it's now linked to 10 in the address bar. But that works, and every time we click on one, it's going to send that number up, and hey presto, we have a card choosing machine ish. We've got way more information we need to put out, and I don't think that's very clear. So on to the templates. Template. We're going to need to make a new file. I'm going to create a folder and put it in there. Come out here, quit this. Make directory templates. We may have more than one template at some point, so I'm just going to throw it all in a folder called templates. CD templates, and actually forget that. We'll do it over here. Tab edit templates dot, and we'll call this main dot template. No, we'll call it HTML. The only reason I'll call it HTML is because then I get syntax highlighting how I like it. So what does a traditional HTML document look like? I promised that I was coding this, I was going to teach people who've not done any coding before, so if you've not looked at HTML before, hopefully you will have looked at some in between last week and now, but for those of you who've done plenty of HTML before, sorry. Classic HTML document starts with a not doc type. This is HTML5, HTML, and then we actually say that we're writing HTML, and these are in, you see the angular braces or the greater than, less than signs, and we'll close the HTML down here. Head. Most browsers complain if you don't include that at some point. Body also, and the / before it is the closer for it. So what you're actually doing is you're creating a kind of tree. The head needs to have this thing called a character set, char set defined for random reasons. The world seems to just be defaulting to Unicode now, so I don't know why we don't just assume that. But meta char set equals UTF-8, and if we look at that in our tree view, that is a child of the head. So meta, like that. See, meta, and yeah, one of these days I'll be able to read and write in a handwriting way that you like. People can read. And the body is where all of the actual content belongs. And you can tab these out as well if you like. It makes life slightly easier to read them. And the body will need to have 3 things. It will need to have those 3 choices. But first we'll put a header 1. H1, this is a title. H1. Unique candlestick. Then we will now create a template. There seems to be a section of this code which is webby, so down here I'll make a thing that says webby section. Yay. And let's do this like this: var temp, and its type is template dot template. So template is the module, and The capital template is the type. So we'll go back to the imports, and we'll add that here. Text template. That's what it belongs in. It's part of the text group of stuff, and you can make a template from them. What actually happens is it will pre-pass, it will read through everything in the template, including all the fancy things you do in your template, which we're going to come to in a bit. And once it's passed them, it can put them out to the, it will output them to the right place when you want it to. So their template, I'm actually just going to keep that temps. I'm going to call it temps for slightly different, so I know that it can store multiple. And it's actually going to be a pointer to templates, but I'm not going to assign it here. So this is just declaring the type, and I'm going to assign it in here in the main function so that if it gets any problems, I can deal with them at assignment. I'll show you what I mean when that comes up. So temps. Now we don't put colon equals because we're using a variable that already exists. Equals template dot pass glob, and the glob it passes is templates stroke. I'm going to put star.html. There's actually only one file in there, but at some point there might be more. So that will find every file in the templates folder that ends in .html, and they will all be treated as templates and passed. Now, as we looked at before, like listen and serve returns an error, this returns the template and an error. But we'll need to this was a real difficult thing. It took me ages to work out how to handle this. It's a really silly thing, because when you use colon equals, it defines a new variable, right? Like if I put a colon equals here, that would make both of these new variables, and so the temps out on the outside wouldn't get set. But if I don't use a colon equals, it can't set the error. It can't create a new error. So I actually found the solution to this was just to make an error here, which is of type error. And that solves that problem. Yeah, that was just really silly of me being really slow for a little while. But that's how you get around the colon equals problem when you need to make sure you don't assign one but you do assign the other. Template.passGlob. So in theory we now have templates, but we may have had an error. And actually if we get an error, what do we want to do with that? Like, we don't really want... The whole program is broken if we get an error there. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to thump.outline out that print f if error does not equal nil, same as usual, thump.printf, and we'll just print f. Oh, print line error. And at this point we might as well return, because the program's not going to work. There is actually an inbuilt function called must that fails in exactly the same way, but that does it with a panic, and I'm sure there's some value in panics, I just don't like it. So temps.error equals passGlob. That should in theory work, and it should read our little template in. And then instead in our code, we'll get rid of this for now. And star that. So that's basic. That's a kind of comment style. I probably didn't mention that earlier. So you've got two dashes to do a single line, or dash star and then star dash to close. Multi-line comments. And instead, we of course need to write it. So temps.execute template execute. And of course we need to tell it where it's going to execute it to, and we're going to send it no data on this occasion. And again, we'll have an error. If there is an error, then it's good to be told. If error does not equal nil, funct.printf error. And I'm going to be kind and tell the people fprintf w error. And that's wrong. That should be line. And that should be line as well. So if there's a problem running the template, it should tell not just us, but it should also tell the end user. So come over here. Let's go run candlestick.go. Undefined func.fprintline. I guess I shouldn't be terribly surprised that that doesn't exist. No new variables on the side of colon. 278. 278. Ah, because I already defined error. Right. So that gets rid of that problem. fprintline is a thing. Doesn't seem to exist. Oh, capital P. There we go. Server started. Yay, so it's been able to read the template. If we press Control R, we get our capital unique candlestick title, which means it's worked. Right? You can see that it's clearly saying something that looks like the HTML. You can actually click View Page Source here and see that we've got the doc type, the meta, everything that we wrote in our template has made it through here. Excellent. Let's get rid of that. We don't need it anymore. And let us try again. Let's see if we can do the next stage where we actually include those details from the making the players. And I'm just going to include this fairly lazily as well. So now the data we're going to include is players, which is an array of type player. At some point we'll change how we send stuff in. For now I'm just going to send in the 0th player so that it's easier. Dot hand. So what we're actually sending in is an array of presumably 3 cards. Yeah, a slice, not an array. Which should mean that in here we can use fancy template language stuff. Range over dot. Actually, dot represents whatever was sent in to this, and we're just going to range over it. We should, and dot will then yeah, this is complicated to explain. Don't worry about that too much. So range will take whatever data is sent to it, expecting a list, just like in the other in Golang. This is a slightly different language which links to Golang very tidily. It's actually really cool because you can even give it your own functions to work through here, which will run as Go code, which I think is part of what makes this super fast as a language. And at some point, I've already gone through this on a previous occasion and made a whole ton of functions that I find really useful, and added them to my standard template system so that I can just throw stuff out a bit quicker. Dot represents whatever data came in, But as soon as it begins running through the range, dot will now represent each individual element. There's a concept called a pipeline where data will comes in. Everything that comes out of here will go out to. There could be many parameters on this side. There aren't many I can write here, but I could write a string here, hello, and a couple of other things. And then as I range through those things, each one in that list will become the elements we look at here. Now we're ranging through dot, which is currently the hand which we've been sent. So dot now should represent each individual number. So we can now output, well, we know what we were aiming for, wasn't it? It was an anchor A, href equals, and now we can just put it. I'll show you what it should look like. It will look like 34, close that, and then 34, and then close the anchor. 34 is not something we can really access. We want to use the numbers that are already in here. I'm going to run this as it is, so you can see that we should end up with, in theory, we should end up with 3 34s. So I'm running the server, Control R, and here we go, 34, 34, 34. And each of those, if we click on them, will link to 34. But we don't want 34. We want whatever the value is of dot. And actually, it's really easy to access. We just use the same 2 curly braces and then go into separate outside mode, the template mode. And then I think we can just put a dot. And we can replace this with exactly the same thing too. And the underlines there are just highlighted because it's HTML and it realizes that that's a link. And now, obviously, we have to quit the server and start it again because the template's preloaded just at the beginning of the program. So, and now if we refresh, we now have the 3 cards in a row, and we can use whatever HTML we like to lay those out. Like we could stick a BR on the end, and isn't this much easier to read than what we had before? I might even. No, I'll leave that as it is here, and a paragraph which says, "Please choose a card." And again, quit this, run it again, refresh the page. So now it says, "Please choose a card." 1. And it's choosing the cards, and the right card I choose is then making it to the window. So that's quite a lot you can do with a little bit of HTML and a little bit of Golang, and you're throwing out pages that look quite capable, really. I mean, I know it's not super fancy, but a little bit of work with the HTML, and you can just throw in the data wherever you want. So the next stage is going to be slightly tricky. Now we've got it so that we can choose a card. We actually want to let the user, we want to keep track of the game in the background. So for now, we're going to just create some stuff and keep it in the background. What was everything we needed for a game? We definitely needed an array of players, which we created in the handle, which is a terrible place to create it. But the other things we needed to keep track of were the winner of the last game. Each player has their score. We know how many cards they have. When we create this, can work out what a game object looks like. Let's go Control 0. Now we know what a player is. Type game. And again, that's a struct. Player. I can never get the Y. It's actually not. It's players, isn't it? It's a slice of player. And each player then has a position and everything that to do with them. And the only other thing we need is a last turn. And that's an int. That should be everything we need in a game struct. The new player method here starts off like this, and we had a new game method somewhere, didn't we? Or create game. But we definitely have a new player method. And I feel like the thing to do now is to have a method that says new game, func new game, and num players, I guess, and players as an int. And at some point we'll want to include a num human, but for now we won't worry about that. And oh right, it was n players. We'll yank that. Ooh. And in here we can put that. Return and game, and the first parameter is players, so we'll just put players, and the second parameter is the last turn. For that we'll put -1 because we don't know whose turn it was last, and we're just going to choose that at random. Oh, it was last one. Last one. We may at some point need to have whose turn as well, because if we want to make this multiple player, then that will make sense. So we now have the game with a struct that says, I think, everything we need for a game. Basically it's made the array of players, m players big, m players, and no major need for that, so let's just clear it out. All of the players are made, and we've got a game, so this needs to actually return that. It returns a pointer to a game. So when we begin our server, which is not the best time again, but it will do for now, main. Once we've gone through our templates, we will create. We have that public variable temps. There, game, and again we were just making this for one player, so it's not the best plan. And this is a pointer to a game. Game equals new game, and the number of players we're going to have is 5. And now in here we can access game. I'm sure there are some people, if they're watching this and have managed to stay watching this long, are going, you're just making a global variable, and that's a problem. It's kind of a problem. That will be dealt with at some point. For now, it's the quick and easy way of getting something out there, and it's only as global as this module anyway. So no one's going to have a mistake of accidentally overwriting it somewhere. func handle response writer. In the end, we're actually going to replace this from a map that will store it, so that lots of players can have their own game stored in there. This information here, where we made a game, we no longer need that. That was rubbish. The initial state of the game will have been created. We're going to need to send more data in so that it can access, and I'm actually going to send in the entire game to the template. Which will confuse it for a second, but once we fix up the template, that won't be a problem. The only thing we need to do now is if the request has a number, then we can handle that. Let me just, so path colon equals r dot url dot path strings. I'm going to use a module called strings because that makes my life slightly easier. Strings dot remove prefix quote that quote from url.path s comma e colon equals a. We'll make that an a. So, and that's error colon equals str string convert dot a to I. We've used this before, haven't we? A to I of path if error does not equal nil, then we want to do something. If the error is equal nil, and we want to do something otherwise, else. Apparently, in Golang we don't really like else's, but I feel like there's no other way. So, and it does at least work. If error is equal to nil, then we're good. We can basically play a round of the game. I'm just going to put something in here that says play round of game. Else oh, we need a message. We can put a message into our game struct. So this message will be where we tell the user that they've done something they shouldn't have done. Since we're lazily handling the number off the path, it's very easy for someone to just throw in a different number. Like they could try and play a card they don't have, for example. We need to make sure we don't allow them to do that. Whenever you're working on the server side, you've got to assume that whoever the user will send you fake data, will send you any kind of rubbish that will confuse your system and get around it. So you have to make sure that what you get will not break the system, or anything you get, if it could break the system, just throw it out. Because it's very easy to send data that's not expected from a user browser or from other systems. But even in a browser, you can open up a script editor and just type whatever you want to send to that server. So for now, our function is checking if the error is equal to nil. Otherwise, game.message equals sprintf makes a nice string. But it just returns it instead of writing it somewhere. I did make a mistake. When I said that these could all be lowercase, that was wrong. So we need to go and find our game struct. Everything we want the templates to be able to read needs to be a public property. Deck, hand, and yep. So we're going to get a ton of errors. I'm just going to go through and fix up those errors very, very quickly. Okay, I think I've edited all of these out. I'm just going to quickly test. Control-C. Candlestick 32, cannot use players, type. Pointer player as type. Oh, slice player. Yeah, that makes sense. So that was just a normal error. So this is actually of type pointer player. 32, too few values in struct initializer. Oh yeah, of course. Struct initializer here seems to need a. Let's give it the empty string. That should cover that. Undefined strings. Oh yeah, and probably undefined string convert as well. So. I know we've got string convert. So 266. Remove prefix. Game.message undefined. Yep, game. But it does have a message. So 272. 272. Message. Remove prefix. Let me just check what that's actually called. I was just working on a guess that it was something like that. Golang strings. Is it strip? Here we go. Trim prefix. And I had them the wrong way around. So trim prefix, and it's supposed to be S and then prefix by the looks of things. Yeah, be very careful as well if you do a trim prefix and you think you're going to get a file reference from this. With a little bit of clever trickery, people can persuade you to you know, a couple of dots here or there or something, like people could try and get a file upwards of where you're actually at. And you don't really want to tell people any files that you've not put in the public place. In this case, it's okay because we're actually going to try and convert it to a number, and it's very difficult to use a number to do anything dangerous. So, and basically if we get an error at number conversion, we're going to complain. So we're only going to play around in the game if the error is not nil. Actually, we also need to limit it to the set of numbers in the cards they actually have, because again, people could cheat there. We'll do that in a minute. Let's just see if it runs. Declared and not used. A. Oh yeah, we were going to do something with A. I'll underscore it for now. So it works. When we actually go here and refresh, we're going to have a problem. Yeah. The problem here is that we were working with just the hand. Now it's not working with just the hand. The template doesn't know how to handle it. So we need to go back to our template and fix the details. So instead of ranging over that, we now need to range over dot. The game has a dot players at 0 dot hand. That might actually work. I'd be happy if it does. It's a bit. If that works, then Control C. So main.html. So it failed to read the template and it's complained. Fair enough. Main.html9. So it doesn't know how to do that. So we can actually make variables in this. A colon equals dot players. We use index dot players 0, and then we should be able to use $a dot hand. So does that make any sense? So inside there, the squiggly braces, I have actually assigned a variable that should apply within whatever scope it's in. Index is a method that belongs to this set of things, which can take something and find a value at that place. So it's these are like the two parameters to the index method, one the array and two the location in the array. So hopefully this should bring back the dot being the game, dot players at 0 goes into A, and that player has a hand. In theory. Let's see if it works. It didn't complain at that point. Let's Control R. And yes, we have a legitimate hand, and we'll probably get the same hand again and again, right? Because now we only have one game, and then when I click on one of these, it's not doing anything except recognizing that I've clicked on one of them. Perfect. Oh, do you know the other thing we never did? I don't think we ever seeded random in the main function anymore. Does play game have the seed? Let's pull that out and put it in our main function again. Because we kept getting the same numbers, didn't we? Always 1, 6, and 10. And that was because we never seeded that. So, we now have the cards from the real game coming through. Quickly, let's grab up play game, end players, int. I feel like we've done enough today. We've not quite made it as far as I was hoping, but I'm going to leave you with a challenge, and that is to try and get the computer to start the game, and when the player clicks on a thing, to actually run around. You can't use the round function directly, but hopefully most of the stuff you need for the function will be in there. in theory, this result here, so using this variable here, whatever you want to call it, I want you to try and complete a round of the game. You can definitely use the beats function, and not the beats function, you won't need to call that directly. You can definitely use the get winner function. Maybe you want to loop through the players unless they're human, in which case you send out a choose a card to the website, and that's where you'll leave it. See if you can build up the message in the HTML so that it says it's your turn. Maybe even better, see if you can show which cards have been shown, show each player's score. Definitely doable. You can use range on players and then an internal range. Oh no, a range on players and then get each of their scores. So yeah, you got to use the decide trick function to get who wins and everything like that, and choose whose turn it is going to be first. Have some fun with that. It's not going to be easy, but this is supposed to get harder, and I think this, do bits of it. Just see if you can get the scores printing. See if you can get a few other things, and whatever you can get doing, whatever you can't get doing, I'll do next week. But try to get a couple of things doing with the round working. And if you've enjoyed these lessons, whatever, do like and subscribe, and I'll see you all next week. Bye.